Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today is September 16th, 2020, and this is the Flight Sim News. So here's a video I found kind of interesting. This is a DCS F-14B simple lantern pod tutorial for the Rio and the Pilot.
Vehicles in the open. Friendly's 3 clicks north. Focal 1, ready additional. Focal 1, copy all.
Alright, now we're in the front of the 14. Let's go through the basic controls and movements for the targeting pod. But first of all, we want to make sure everything's set up in the front seat. So we want the master arm on, we want to have the air to ground selected, and we want to change this to TV. So when we do have the bomb information, we can see what we need to do. And let's go into the back now. And the first thing we want to do is come over to the left hand side. I like to put it in manual mode when I'm dropping GBUs, and then we've got to scroll along and find the GBU 16. You have to make sure you select the right weapon type and select the store we want to drop. Come over to the left hand panel and double check that we are operational. We have the laser arm, and then we're going to change this to FLIR so we can see what the targeting pod sees. So if you come to the TID and flick it down to TV, we now have the targeting pod on site, and as you'll notice, the HCU and the SLU are two different controls, so keep that in mind as you're binding your controls. So if we take a look at the controls that we have to bind, we can start out simple with the...
Overall, the video is almost 11 minutes long, and I gotta admit, it's probably one of the better ones I've seen that really go deep and show you exactly how to utilize the lantern pod in the Tomcat. And I'm going to be checking it out myself to get a grip on that too, because it's not something I've ever really messed with too much, even though I love the Tomcat like I do. So I will throw a link to this in the video description as usual, and you can check it out for yourself. So the other day I'd posted the Tactical Pascale live stream event that they were having. And they also have, edited out the part where they did the interview with Eagle Dynamics' Katia Peredenko, who's the COO of Eagle Dynamics.
Order, I suppose. So. And how has that shaped the team?
Well, we would like to involve as much people from community as we can, but we understand that people can have their own life besides the community. So sometimes we hire somebody from community when people would like to participate and spend.
My job was that. Yep, I'll have that. Thank you very much. Looks amazing.
And it's not a PR action, okay? So I'm not encouraging you for anything, but as you said, what we are proud of. Well, yes, we are proud of the map.
Should we do another?
Well, Super Carrier was another one. And it was a completely new area for us. We didn't even have a single document about it when we started. We just decided we want to have it. That's all.
Yeah.
So it was a passion for us to deliver. And we actually did it in a very short period of time. We wanted to have it much earlier, but we realized what we need to deliver and what we need to develop and all the operations on the deck and so on. So it took a little.
It's a really, really good interview. It's about 55 minutes long. I'll throw a link to this in the video description as usual. And this is another thing I found. This is just a short breakdown of the interview and some of the things that were said, and they talked about the Harrier and went on to say that Razbam takes responsibility and decision when it's in EA or out of EA. Ed helps and support Razbam. Harrier is considered feature complete, and updates and bug fixes will continue to be delivered to the module. More on the Harrier in a minute. AI non-combat aircraft, maybe one day, lots of stuff needs completed first, and Ed is focused on combat aircraft. Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 influence on ED and DCS, question mark. Kate is pretty happy with the success of Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 because it brings more people in the flight sim community, and that is so true. I had said this early on. I think it's great for the whole, the whole genre in general that Microsoft comes out, because people are going to want to know, how do I fly an aircraft and drop bombs? How do I fly an aircraft and fight now? Once they've had a taste of flight in Microsoft Flight Simulator. And then she also goes on to say that, it also inspires Eagle Dynamics to bring new technologies into DCS, and also means potentially more third parties will be interested to make modules, because that's true. As they make modules for Flight Simulator, they might want to jump in and make one for Eagle Dynamics in DCS as well. They talk about the dynamic campaign a little bit. She says it's a huge piece of work, specific tools in the interface to set up the campaign and make it alive. No cheating once the campaign is running, but it will be possible to control it. Many tasks to be done and lots of new features. And she goes on to say the new weather is ready and waiting for clouds to be implemented. COVID lockdown was tough and slowed down some processes, but now that the holidays are over, Ed team is now in good shape. And then they talked about the free modules event, and she says it was a good event for the community during the COVID situation. It was for the community, not for sales. Why not a similar event one day? And then the biggest development challenge right now is that legacy code. Eagle Dynamics understands they need to change the whole engine. They don't know yet if they will change it in iterations or at once. Creating the new architecture has started. The new graphics engine is part of this whole project. Project is there, but legacy code is tough. And then they talk about other challenges that Ed has to overcome, but the community is not really aware of. The channel map, interesting, a new project for Ed in terms of size, colors, details, buildings, and historical areas. For the team developing the terrain, it was a challenge. Ed is proud of the map and achieved a lot from a technological point of view, and it is really an amazing map. And then, just like in that little bit there in the video, she's talking about Super Carrier, and they're really proud of that. They wanted to deliver it earlier, but they realized how much they needed to develop with deck animations, notably, and Ed works as a democracy, and they ask everyone if they feel proud of their products. And then there's a couple other things here, and I'm not going to read it all. I'll leave this in the video description for you to run through it yourself, but it really is a good interview. And like I said, I'll throw a link to that in the video description and this as well, and you can check them both out for yourself. All right, Prowler 111 is from Razbam. And Razbam's been a little bit in the shit lately. And it has to do with the fact that I think a lot of people in the community brought out the pitchforks and torches because Razbam had removed the Harrier from the early access program. And basically, it is feature complete, but there's a lot of bugs yet. And I think a lot of people took it the wrong way, and as usual, jumped to conclusions and, started the mob mentality. But on one hand, I get it. I do. There's a lot of products in DCS that just aren't complete, that are upwards of 2 years old. And these things take time, though. And I think what people don't understand and don't comprehend or realize is that it is for the good of all of us that these things take as long as they do. Because during the journey from, the very first days of early access to being removed from early access, I guarantee you there's a bunch of features and fixes and things that are added to any given module that the community has helped steer in that direction, and that has been added based on the feedback of the community. So on one hand, this isn't like the old days where we had a box product and you paid your $60 and that's it. Nothing's going to change. You got that box product, you were lucky if you got a patch or two to fix something that was bad or wrong, but you didn't get new features, you didn't get anything added to it because the community said they wanted it, With the process the development process that Eagle Dynamics uses is really good for everybody because, again, so many things change and is steered in a slightly different direction than what that ship started out as, you know what I mean? And it is really a good thing in the overall scheme of things. But most people can't really grasp that, I guess. Everybody shells out their 60 or 30 or 40 or $80. And then, I paid for this, I deserve what's mine, blah, blah, blah. It's that whole mentality, man, online these days. Everybody feels entitled, and it's like, no, you really don't. You signed on and bought a title that was in development. And when you did that, you agreed to wait for that title to be done with no promise as to when it would be done. So, in my mind, that means shut the fuck up and wait for it to be done and quit your bitching. Because it is what it is. You signed up for that. You know, if it's 1 year or 5 years, you paid that money, you took that risk. And that's what's going on right now. And it continues to go on. And again, I get it. Some people are mad because they paid, X amount of dollars, and the Hornet's still in development. Or the F-16 still in development. But how many things have they added that was outside of the original scope of work because it is in the development process in the way that it is being developed? I don't think people really understand the value for the money that they actually get. So anyway, back to the topic at hand. They talk about, this has been a controversy with the Night Attack module being moved from early access to released, and pretty much all of it is based on a false presumption that it means the module is being a done deal, hence no more work or bug fixes will continue. As stated before, it's a false idea. Being out of early access means the module has reached its production milestone and it is feature complete as to what has been promised in the product description page. It's a process that comes in two ways. Us as a third-party content developer company and Eagle Dynamics as main owner of where such content will be used. It's a studied decision from both parties that also involves a high degree of confidence from Eagle Dynamics towards us that we continue, support bug fixing and adding features, even those not mentioned in the description page. One clear example is the Mirage 2000C, which has been out of EA for quite some time and still gets bug fixes, enhancements, and complete rework of systems on a regular basis. Even the 3D work was overhauled and a new 3D pilot for VR users was included in due time. And there is a big reason behind all of this besides loyalty to our customers and its DCS constant evolution. When the Harrier was released in EA format, many features and functions were not seen in DCS. No corners were cut, but a lot of clever coding was made in order to replicate systems that we were allowed to do so without stepping into very sensitive toes. A lot of new ideas of code implementation was created, and many were enhancements. As time passed by, DCS evolved again into more systems implementation friendly platform, as you can see in the complex system of the F-18 Hornet and the Viper. A new way of added code appeared, but we kept dragging our old school code until it was time to move forward into the new way of doing things. For instance, when the Harrier was released, TrackIR was still the mandatory peripheral of choice for immersion in VR setups, was something new and not so popular and affordable as it is currently. Not to mention the lens resolution. Today, everything is different and VR is here to stay and new setups are being offered. And the lens resolution keeps better and better. So a decision was made. It's time to rewrite the entire code so it can perdure in this regard. The Mirage 2000 current code is newer than the AV-8B current code, and at the same time go hand in hand with the new peripheral technologies available to users using the new tech that Ed developed on their own, and very complex new modules. So the first place to start, being the AV-8B, a glass cockpit aircraft, is the MPCDs and HUD. It was decided to move from old texture map screens to SVG. What is SVG and how it relates to DCS? It's scalable vector graphics. I'm not going to read this whole thing here, but I'll try to skip over some of the more important things. There's two drawbacks to the method. Resolution. The larger the file, the better the resolution, but at the expense of computer memory. Resolution is also affected by the level of graphics details selected. And then performance. The higher number of displays in the cockpit, more memory is required, specifically if displays are crowded like a moving map with interactive zones. Eagle Dynamics created a new way to draw displays using SVG format, which is used in both the F-16 and F-18. The main advantage is that SVG graphics do not require as much memory as corresponding texture file. Second, it is indefinitely scalable. This means that unlike texture file, when you zoom in on it, sooner or later you'll notice individual pixels. The SVG graphic will remain the same at all levels of zoom. For DCS, that means that the HUD and MFDs are readable in different conditions, especially when using VR. And then blah, 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 blah. So I guess the point is, and I get this, I've heard them talk about this before, you know, there's a lot of things they do and that they can't do based on how Eagle Dynamics decides to change the code. For instance, nobody in the game has ground radar because the code doesn't support ground radar yet. Not until they created it for the Hornet. So any of the aircraft, why should anybody with the old modules really do anything until the code of DCS itself or the core engine supports something? So there's a lot of features missing in every DCS module out there because the core doesn't support it yet, and that is something that Eagle Dynamics has to come up with first, if you understand what I'm saying. So there's some things, like they were saying in that previous paragraph about, you know, how it takes, you know, a while for Ed to rework something and then Razbam can go ahead and do something. Because, you know, there are some things that just don't look right. And it's because they're not going to change it yet until Eagle Dynamics has it all ironed out. Why should they? They're going to cause more problems by making some of these changes until Eagle Dynamics has it figured out on their own. I hope you're understanding where I'm going with this. That some of the issues with all of the modules missing certain features is not the fault of the third-party developer. It is the fault of Eagle Dynamics core not supporting some things that are needed. So that, the big one, is the ground radar, because that's something that Eagle Dynamics has had to develop themselves to include in the F-18. So here is a list of current bug fixes that will be available in coming DCS updates. So there's a very large list right here, expected in the 9.16 patch, which is today. And then there's a pending updates, which is a huge list. So I think what happened is they saw everybody bitching about the Harrier and they decided, look, we're going to speak up and let them see what we've really done and what we're doing and how many things have actually been fixed. I mean, this is all stuff that I'm sure they wasn't able to just address all of this stuff in the week, you know, in the previous week when people started bitching about it. This had to be stuff that was in the works. So, I don't know, man. I get it. I get the fact that people complain because they've spent money and didn't get, you know, what they were promised yet. But at the same time, when it comes to the Harrier, it is feature complete. That's why it's out of early access. Is there still problems? I'm sure there are. But that doesn't mean they're not going to support it further. And I know a lot of people really give Razbam a hard time, but I think they have some of the most fun modules in the game, man. I love the Mirage. I love the Harrier, you know. Give them a break, guys. You know, I'll throw a link to this in the video description so you can check it out for yourself. But there's a lot of stuff that they've done. And like I said, man, put the pitchforks and the torches down for a minute and read this. And think about things for a moment. You know, there's a lot of things that no third-party developer can move ahead and add to their modules because they're waiting for Eagle Dynamics to get it figured out with their core. And then the problem is, you know, their Eagle Dynamics is also working on the new core engine. They're going to, I think some of the stuff they may actually just sit back and not implement into the current core because why should they when they're working on new code? So do you see where this is going? We may never see some features that are promised in the current iteration of the core engine of DCS because they're also working on a new one, and that would mean doing the work twice. So I'm going to leave that at that. I'll throw a link to this in the video description, but I really wanted to just address this and discuss this and try to shed light on some of what I thought was going on, at least when it comes to the Harrier. I still think the Harrier is great fun and probably one of the best modules in DCS. Alright, next up, WAGs is at it again. This is the Viper Air-to-Ground Missile 65 Maverick video.
Hey everyone, Wags here from Eagle Dynamics. In a future DCS World update, we'll be adding the initial implementation of the AGM-65 Maverick tactical air-to-surface missile for the F-16. The Maverick provides standoff ranges between 6 and 8 miles, and it's ideal for attacking short-range air defense systems and armor. It's also a launch and leave weapon. Our F-16 can be loaded with 4 versions of the Maverick. Keep that there for now. And back on the right. Now, once the Maverick is done spooling up and ready to display video, it won't actually display video here on the SMIS page. Instead, it'll be doing it on the weapon page. And to bring up the weapon page, let's do that now. We have an open OSB here. Let's map the weapon page to that. So double press. We have the list of pages here. We have weapon, press it, and now we have the weapon page up. And note, we have a not timed out message, and that's because it takes the Maverick about 3 minutes to spool up, and we haven't reached that point. Again, square indicates where the targeting pod is looking, and the circle indicates where the Maverick is looking. You can see again that these are also correlated together. In the LAR, we're at 8 miles, well within range. So let's unpause, hold down the weapon release button, and rifle. Okay, now just waiting for the shack. And shack. Okay, so those are some of the basics of the pre-plan mode.
Pretty cool. This video is almost 17 minutes long. I'll throw a link to this in the video description as usual, and you can check it out for yourself. All right, lastly, and I reported this in the news the other day, but I just want to take a look at the page itself now. So the Total Controls Kickstarter is up for their multifunction button box. 41 days to go. They've got 20 grand out of the 85 grand that they're looking for. So they're almost a quarter of the way there, which is nice. Some of the various things you can do. Pledge without a reward. Yeah, that sounds like fun. So you can pledge something just to help them out if you want. If you pledge $23, you can get a file. Why wouldn't the thing come with that? So you get some kind of STL file to 3D print something, I guess. Looks like your main beginning price to get in the door with one of these is $285 US. So if you pledge $285, you can get a button box. Now, early multifunction. What is the difference between early and standard? Why would you want early instead of standard? And then I guess for a little bit more you get a standard multifunction box. And then for $435 you get a button box with a throttle add-on. And then $252. Oh, those ones are all gone. So the super early multifunction button box. $342, a personalized one. $458, a button box with a table mount. So it sounds pretty cool. There's a little video here from Jonas talking about what's going on. He's the founder. And then you can find some more information down here about it. You know, I gotta admit, it does sound a little bit pricey, but you know, I can't say for certain because I haven't seen it in hand to know the quality of what you're getting. And you know, in the overall scheme of things, when you think about how much money is spent on HOTAS gear, this is kind of right up there with, you know, the throttles and the sticks and stuff like that from the VKBs and Thrustmaster. So I'm going to leave it at that, guys. So as always, thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. Feel free to hit that like button. And until next time, guys.